from cities and towns to remote communities deep in the interior. How do we keep 2.5 million people moving safely and connected to the rest of the world?
Transport is a very important matter under our PCDS 2030, that is Post-COVID Development Strategies of Sarawak, where transport is an enabler to all the developments of the economy.
From roads and riverine to maritime and aviation, we connect the dots on Decimal Point. Sarawak's economy is on the rise, with more budget allocated for its development each year. Being 90% the size of the Peninsula Malaysia, Sarawak's growth comes with its challenges. From bustling towns to remote longhouses only reachable by river, transport isn't just about getting around, it's about access to livelihoods. And for the economy to continue to grow, the key challenge is connecting Sarawak. What are the unique responsibilities of the Ministry of Transport Sarawak? And amazingly, we also know that you've been in public administration for more than 3 decades. Maybe you can walk us through with the audiences on that.
Ministry of Transport has been set up just recently, that is in 2019, which is around 5 years plus. It is the first step to have a Ministry of Transport in the whole Malaysia. And of course, I've been the permanent secretary for just 1 year and 8 months. Prior to this, most of the times, I was the resident of Cebu divisions. Most of my times, of my career times, I serve in the residence and district office throughout Sarawak. Of course, transport is a very important matter under our PCDS 2030, that is Post-COVID Development Strategies of Sarawak, where transport is an enabler to all the developments of the economy. So we are looking into the transport, not only of the land transport, we are also looking into the maritime, and also we are also looking into the aviation side. Of course, no doubt, if you look at the federal constitution, transport is under the federalists, but there are a lot of things that where the states can play in terms of transport, to complement what the federal is doing, and also to coordinate the development of transport in Sarawak particularly.
Let's start and kickstart off with the land transport first. The Kuching Urban Transportation System, or KUTS, we know is a landmark project in Sarawak. Now, in having said that, how is the state going to ensure its long-term sustainability, viability, and also what's new for Sarawakians to know in the long run, as this is one of the most anticipated projects, Dato'?
First of all, I would like to just explain what is KUTS, because a lot of people doesn't understand what is KUTS. KUTS consists of, actually, we are starting out with phase 1. Phase 1, we are implementing this ART, or Autonomous Rapid Transit, and also the last mile will be supported by buses, the hydrogen bus. The difference between our ART is that ART is the shape is just look like a train, but however it is running on a virtual threads with running on rubber tires. So there is a difference. And the reasons why we want to choose ART rather than LRT or MRT, because the cost of implementing is much more cheaper. It is around maybe 1/3 of LRT, and the cost could be around more than, less than half of LRT as compared to what have been implemented in Semenanjung, Malaysia. And our ART is designed to be having a maximum speed of 70 kilometers per hour. So for our phase 1, like we call it phase 1's KUTS, we are having 3 lines with a total distance of nearly 69 kilometers. So these LRTs will be running with, it's similar like ART or MRT. We have proper stations and so on, have interchange. And at the end, Every stations we have the last mile connections, which is also using buses, and our buses is using hydrogen bus. And on top of that, our ART is also hydrogen powered. And this is the first hydrogen powered ART in the world. And the first ART system outside China proper. So in order to make it sustainable, of course, we are looking into the implementations, where we are looking into the most, we have to do the studies where the areas where we have the most catchment area. For example, like the blue lines, where from Samarkand to Kuching, and there is a huge population. For your information, at the present moment, if you drive from Samarkand to Kuching, it takes around 2 to 3 hours of a distance of around 20 kilometers, 20 to 30 kilometers length. So that is why, of course, LRT itself, in any parts of the world, all the governments are actually invest heavily in the land transports. Even in our counterpart, like for example, the federal government is subsidized very heavily on the MRT system and ART also. And this is the way forwards, because we look at it, the most important thing is mobilities. When you look at, for example, you look at China, for example, why they develop such a huge rapid transport systems? They spend billions and trillions of dollars. But mobilities is very important for us to generate economy. Apart from it is cheaper to construct compared to MRT and ART. Of course, we also look into others like non-fare revenues. For example, we have to optimize our non-fare revenues like advertisements and other things. And also, we also have the concept of like TODs, which can be also where private sectors can participate. And the most important things now is we know that this LRT is hydrogen powered. Our productions of hydrogens will be done in-house by Sarawak Metro Central Hub, which means that the cost of hydrogens will be much cheaper as if you have to buy from somebody from the third party.
Earlier, Dato, you mentioned something on TOD, is it?
TODs is a transit-on developments where you have the developments, for example, at the stations, at the interchange. You can see that in other countries, then you have the localized developments of all these stations and the interchange, where they provide commercial activities. We call it the non-fare commercial activities. It will generate non-fare revenues for the ART system itself. One of the ART stations is at our airport. The moment you come to Kuching, you landed in the airport, you can use the ART system and go straight to the city center.
At the heart of Sarawak's transport aspirations is a clear goal: economic growth, social inclusivity, and environmental sustainability. What does that look like on the ground? Beyond the IRT backbone, what do you think also is one of the strategy for this seamless multi-modal transport network connecting not only for land, but also for buses, river taxis maybe, perhaps?
Definitely. Of course, the ART systems for the time being, we have 2 hydrogen buses at every station serving with a radius of 3 kilometers within the station itself to serve at the first mile and the last mile service. Furthermore, we do have also integrate with the existing bus systems, for example, like the SPST, the pink bus in Kuching, which is I think implemented by the federal. We also have the interchange with them, where we will be able to integrate. And you can see that one of the ART stations is at our airports. The moment you come to Kuching, you landed in the airport, you can use the ART system and go straight to the towns, to the city center. And of course, in future, we will be looking into integrate further, especially with our river transport.
Yes, you're talking about like feeder buses and maybe feeder river buses also as well. Also, maybe Doctor, we're also curious to know, coming from the Ministry of Transport Sarawak, what is the perception of the usage of buses currently in the state?
In the states, we can see that over the decades, bus used to be a very important public transport in the olden days, in the 60s and 70s. If you can recall, for those people who are of my age, we used to use bus in the olden days. But however, due to the growing economies and the increase of incomes, individuals tend to own cars nowadays as compared in the 60s and the 70s. So gradually, bus look like a sunset I would say, Suntec Industries business. Basically, Ministries of Transport also will look into it, and then we have made the research. There are a lot of reasons why people decline to use bus, basically all over Sarawak. First one, our buses are aging. A lot of ours, especially the stage buses, are very old, 20 years old, 30 years old, and without not proper maintenance. That's one. Second things, the bus to them is not reliable because they do not know how long to have wait at the bus stations. Sometimes 20 minutes, sometimes 13 minutes. And also the conditions, and furthermore, because we don't have, like other countries, we have dedicated lanes for the bus. So meaning to say that the bus still have to squeeze in between together with the other vehicles on the roads. However, now government is looking into transformations of new buses. For example, the HPSD implemented by the federal, the smart bus systems in Miri implemented by the states, and this year we are going to implement the new bus transformation in Cebu. Hopefully this year in 2026, where we change the bus. Basically, the most important thing is introductions of new bus, smart bus, with all the digitals, the latest technologies that we have installed in the bus. So this bus will give the commuters a new feelings. For example, the bus will be integrated with all the digital systems. You can do the e-payments and you can monitor. And the most important things, like for example, Miri Smart Bus, you can have your apps. It's just like a great car where you can see, where you can monitor where the bus are going and when the bus is going to reach your station. So this can become a good planner for a journey planner, where the most important thing, the buses not only affordable, but also reliable. The most reliable is information to the commuters. That you have the confidence in using the bus. You know that when the bus is coming to you and when you are going to arrive at your destination.
Now, KUTS is a state-funded project, Dato'. What is your vision for the role of private sector and maybe broader investments into this landmark project that we're yet to see in Sarawak?
You see, there are a lot of places where private sector can play a very important part. As you know, the ecosystems, you cannot depend on just LRT itself or the buses. Things like, for example, e-hailing, taxis are equally important. In other countries, bicycle sharing, even e-scooters and related infrastructures also are very important to make the whole ecosystem move, especially within the urban area. And besides, private sectors are also can play a very important part in the relations. Like, for example, when we have the, let's say, LRT system, we like to encourage park and ride facilities, for example, where this is where the private sectors can come in. Where a person can have a parking at a certain place and they jump into the LRT, right? And also the same things, private sectors can also come into the investments like transport hub. A good example which has already exists in Kuching is our Kuching's bus terminal, express terminal, which is fully owned by the private sectors. You see, these are all the opportunities actually the private sectors can look into it. Whether it is a transport hub, it can be a bus terminal, and even can be lorry terminal, for example, logistic terminals. And you can see in other countries, a lot of these transport hubs are actually privately owned.
That's right. And also we know that sustainability is a stated pillar across all modes of transportation, be it land, air and water, Dato'. Now, seeming that we are towards PCDS 2030, how are green principles being incorporated in the broader ecosystem of transport in Sarawak, Dato'?
First, we introduced, as you mentioned already, KUTS, which is totally hydrogen powered, first in the world. And also, apart from the LRT itself, even we have another 58 units of the last miles buses also powered by hydrogens. Apart from that, outside Kuching, where we do not have at the moment, we do not have the supplies of hydrogens, we encourage transport, for example, like EVs. I think private sectors also EV is increasingly, you can see on the roads. However, I think EV can be another good options. For example, like in Miri, for example, if we have either we go for EV and the other option, we can go for the low carbon emissions like Euro 5 standards vehicles, Euro 6, which control the carbon emissions. These are the good ways of controlling carbon emissions, going towards net zero emissions by 2050. And besides that, even in the maritimes, also we encourage, like for example, what we have is the e-vessels, the e-penampans they have in Kuching. enforcement is equally important. That's why we are working very closely, especially with police departments and also the road transport departments, JPJ, to do the enforcement.
From the autonomous rapid transit in Kuching to new highways and bridges, Sarawak is rethinking how people move. Innovation is more than just technology. Building a network of safe and affordable mobility is central to Sarawak's development story. For Sarawak, we have unique road safety challenges also due to its mixed urban areas and its rural areas, its reach. Now, what specific data-driven initiatives are given by the Ministry of Sarawak to drive this and also maybe to reduce accidents and fatalities on the road, as we can see, especially in transporting goods from, for example, from low areas to high areas and other divisions as well. Datu.
Okay. Of course, today with digital economies, data-driven is very important for the ministry to make decisions. From this data-driven initiative, we identify, first of all, the high-risk area, the high-risk accidents-prone area, and even the types of vehicles involved in the accidents. And from this, we can find out there are many reasons why people have accidents, why accidents happens on the roads. For example, like using phone while driving. For example, from the statistics shown by the police, actually, there are three main types of accidents. One, especially when talking about road accidents, first is knocking from the back. Second, you are actually losing control due to high speed, speed control. The third one, when the vehicle is actually coming up from the junction itself. So these are the things that we can see. From this, then we can formulate our interventions, especially some awareness to the publics against the road safety. And of course, you know that accidents have been happening, it have been increasing trend due to the increased numbers of vehicles every year on the roads. But however, the most important thing, we want to make sure that accident fatalities rate is going lower and lower with the awareness among the road user. Ministry of Transport is looking very seriously into the increasing road accidents every year happening in Sarawak. And the Ministries of Transport, every year now we conduct a different, especially on awareness programs. First, I think we have, at the moment we have 6 Sarawak traffic gardens throughout Sarawak, where the first one, we want to educate the students when they were still in the schools, primary schools, secondary schools, about the road safety awareness. And of course, besides that, we also collaborate with a lot of federal agencies, particularly enforcement like police, JPJ, road transport departments, to educate the public about road safety awareness. We do have a lot of road safety campaign, especially during the festive season. And we also have the road safety awareness program, TABDC, so that people can hopefully will change after attending all these awareness courses, especially the road users. And through AI also, through statistics, we also get a lot of information of where are the accidents happens, especially in the suburban area where ministries have done initiative, especially like, for example, installations of smart traffic light to reduce the accidents at certain road junction, especially the black, I would call it accidents prone area. We also do, for example, like installations of the digital radar speed panels for us to inform the road user to slow down the speed while they are driving on the roads.
Public behaviour, we know, is a critical factor. So what are the most effective educational or safety awareness issues on the ground that the ministry can tackle?
I think the other one I would like to emphasize is that enforcement is equally important. So that's why we are working very closely, especially with police departments and also the road transport departments, JPJ, to do the enforcement, particularly at the accident-prone area, where we know that, for example, like I give you an example like Palm Borneo. During the P-turns, a lot of people we have observed, they abuse the P-turn. That's one of the main cause of the accidents happens along the Palm Borneo. So enforcement is very vital in order for us to reduce. I think regular enforcement and effective enforcement, it will help to reduce the rate of accidents on the road.
So how about pedestrian culture, Dato? Any plans or initiatives that the ministry is going to take as well?
For example, if you look at Singapore or other bigger cities, they do encourage people to work. But however, due to our culture here, people have seldom like to work. Basically, I think due to the climate here, because we have hot weathers and rainy weathers. But I think we are working also together with the local authorities to look into areas, especially in the cities area, where we can encourage, working lands, creating more working streets, things like that. Especially, for example, I can see the certain initiative, for example, we encourage, for example, in our future ART stations, we encourage the private sector, especially if our ART is next to the, let's say, shopping malls, we encourage them to link, for example, a walkway to the shopping mall where it is covered walkway. So in that case, people will try to, promote people walking in the city center.
Now we're going to go further into the river transport, maritime, and perhaps also the air services in Sarawak, Dato. As we know, Sarawak is blessed with its natural resources, and of course, for both you and I coming down from Cebu, we know that rivers are a vital transport system, especially for the people of Sarawak. Now, maybe you could tell us more also as well, Dato, on the river transport sector in Sarawak. As we know that with projects like E-Sampan or E-Boat Penambang, it's something that is very close to the hearts of the locals here. And also maybe the proposed Kuching Sinawan service that we have. What are the long-term plans for modernizing this as well under the helm of the Sarawak Transport Ministry, Dato?
River used to be traditionally the main mode of transport in Sarawak. As you know, that Sarawak we have a lot of rural areas. Even up to date today, especially in the rural areas with the long houses, rivers still play a very important role of transport, especially for those settlements which are not still connected by the roads. However, the massive use of rivers have been tremendously reduced due to the good networkings of roads, particularly, for example, like Patarejang. Patarejang, in the past, you can see a lot of express boats from Cebu to Kapit, Cebu even to Sirike, for example. But now you see that this amount of transport have stopped because one thing is a good networks, and number two is people are even in the rural area afford to buy cars and they prefer to use car. However, rivers still maintain a very good important means of transport, especially in terms of logistics. It's the cheapest means of transportation. For example, if you want to carry bulky goods, for example, like construction materials. And apart from that, we also want to make use of rivers as one of the natural resources for transports, particularly in urban area, like cities, like in Kuching. For example, that's why you have the Penampan. Penampan have been there for a long time, since the memorial days. It's crossing the river, but we upgrade it to a Penampans in line with our state policies of going green vessels. Now we also look into the other possibilities in future where we want to introduce, for example, like river bus. River bus is the same concept like you have an ART. You have from one station to another stations and so on. The good things about river bus is that is ART, you had to invest very heavily on the infrastructures itself, which cost billions of ringgits. But the rivers is there for us. The only things that you need to upgrade is the river infrastructures, like a proper jetty, a proper stations, and so on. These will provide another alternative means of transport. And in Kuching, where a lot of areas now is experiencing very heavy road congestions, especially during rush hour times. So good possible ways of what you have mentioned just now, for example, like from Kuching proper, Kuching waterfronts, even go downstairs to UCSI's University Hotel, can go right up to Patukawa at the moment. If there are PPPs where private sectors, we'd like to urge private sectors, those who are interested, to look into river bus projects where I think it can be commute easily from Kuching waterfronts right up to Patukawa waterfronts. And this area, you have a huge population. And the cost of operating is much cheaper as compared to ART. I think this type of project is very, very popular in other countries. Example, in Western Europe, like for example in Germany and other countries. So the ministry is also looking at the possibilities of river bus.
From public transports to highways, how Sarawak moves supports Malaysia's journey towards a high-income nation. But connection doesn't stop on land. It continues through rivers, seas and skies, via maritime transport and aviation. Join us in the next episode as we connect Sarawak on Decimal Point.